From T.E. Lawrence to Treat Williams, these celebrities shared a love of motorcycles, but their hobby also cost them their lives. Here are some of the stars who died in tragic bike accidents. For fans of rock and roll, few deaths were as tragic as that of Duane Allman. Duane was one of the members of the Allman Brothers Band, which he founded with his brother Greg. Playing a unique brand of Southern-inspired jam rock, the Allman Brothers were just beginning to make a name for themselves at the time of Duane's death. They had first begun playing in 1969 and found some success on the live circuit, but it wasn't until 1971, with the release of their live album At Fillmore East, that the band experienced commercial success.
He was always the first to face the fire, you know. He was a born leader, he really was.
Your brother Duane?
He really was.
That album was largely driven by Duane's incredible slide guitar skills and lead playing. He electrified fans with not only his technical proficiency, but also the raw emotion he was able to convey through his guitar. Tragically, Duane died less than a year after the album's release, long before he had the chance to see how successful his band would soon become. On October 29, 1971, Duane was killed after colliding with a pickup truck. He was able to survive for a time despite becoming trapped beneath the truck, but finally succumbed to his injuries a few hours later. Duane has since become lionized as one of the greatest guitar players in rock and roll history, making his untimely passing all the more unfortunate. Before long, the Allman Brothers were struck by another motorcycle death. This time, it was their bass player Barry Oakley, who died on November 11, 1972, exactly 1 year and 13 days after Allman. The accident even took place near the spot at which his former bandmate had crashed. Born in Chicago in 1948, Oakley was one of the founding members of the band. In fact, it was actually Duane Allman who had asked Oakley to join. Oakley's smooth bass lines played excellently with Duane and Dickie Betts' guitars, and many saw him as the glue keeping the group together. Oakley appeared on their breakthrough album At Fillmore East, as well as their first album after Duane's death, Eat a Peach. Unfortunately, Eat a Peach marked Oakley's final recording with the band. After getting into an accident with a bus, Oakley was taken to the hospital and died of his injuries soon after. Barry Oakley is still featured on archival Allman releases, and many consider him the best bass player in the band's history. Viewed by many as the defensive future for the Vancouver Canucks, Luc Bourdon had played in just 27 NHL games at the time of his death. He was a first-round draft pick in 2005 and made his NHL debut in 2006, subsequently playing in 9 games. It was not until his second season that he scored his first 2 goals, and he ended his career with a plus-minus of 6. Born in 1987, Bourdon was a native of Shippagan, New Brunswick. On May 29, 2008, he found himself in a motorcycle accident that occurred near his hometown. Bourdon, who was barely 21 years old at the time, had only recently acquired his motorcycle license, and it's possible his inexperience behind the wheel played a part in the crash. His death shocked and saddened his teammates, coaches, and family members, and it quickly became clear that he had made a huge impact on their lives in a short time. Bourdon's funeral was well attended, and many people in the community spoke out about his impact and joyful personality. As a tribute, the NHL held a moment of silence for him during a playoff game following his death. Widely known as Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence is one of the most famous soldiers in British history. Born in 1888, Lawrence rose to fame following his daring exploits during the First World War. A student of architecture in the Middle East, the British found good use for his knowledge of the Arabs, sending him to the front lines in Egypt, Syria, and Palestine. Lawrence played a key role in organizing a guerrilla force to help defeat the Ottoman Empire. He wrote a book about his exploits, The 7 Pillars of Wisdom, which was later adapted into the 1962 classic Lawrence of Arabia.
Nothing is written.
Following the war, Lawrence became an advocate for Arab independence in the Middle East and eventually rejoined the British military in 1923. In 1935, he left the military for the final time, but died before he could enjoy his retirement. Lawrence got into a serious motorcycle accident on May 13, 1935, and died 6 days later while still in the hospital. He was just 46 years old. Britain widely mourned his passing, and he is today remembered as one of the country's most famous war heroes. For boxing fans, the name Diego Corrales brings back memories of some of the best fights in recent history. During his career, Corrales fought 45 times professionally, winning 40 with 33 knockouts. His first fight was back in 1996 when he was just 18 years old, and he first won the IBF Super Featherweight title in 1999 at the age of 22. He lost the belt to Floyd Mayweather Jr. in 2001, but quickly won it back in 2004 after defeating Joel Casamayor. Corrales' career was briefly derailed for 14 months between 2001 and 2002 when he was incarcerated for domestic violence against his wife, but he returned to the sport after his release. 5 years later, however, on May 7, 2007, Corrales was involved in a multi-car accident. He had previously been arrested for DUI, and it was later revealed that he had more than 3 times the legal limit of alcohol in his system when he crashed. In the 10 years leading up to his death, Mitch Lucker led his band, Suicide Silence, to become one of the biggest names in metal. Lucker made a name for himself with his emphatic and powerful shrieks and growls, and he was widely regarded as one of the more talented vocalists in the deathcore scene. In addition to his vocal skills, Lucker was also easily recognizable due to the extensive tattoos that covered his body. Lucker appeared on Suicide Silence's first 3 full-length albums, with his final record being 2011's The Black Crown. Sadly, he died on November 1, 2012 after his motorcycle came into contact with a light pole during an accident the night prior. Lucker was on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle at the time, and the accident occurred in Huntington Beach in Southern California. A candlelight memorial was set up in Lucker's memory soon after, while the band broke the news on social media through a Facebook post. Just over a month following Lucker's death, Suicide Silence played an emotional tribute show in his honor. The show was held in Pomona, California, not too far away from the site of his accident. The band later released the show as an album, titled Ending is the Beginning, the Mitch Lucker Memorial Show.
You would really appreciate the fact that people didn't just forget and move on.
Don Rich was considered by many to be one of the most important guitarists in country music during the 1960s and 70s. Born in Washington in 1941, Rich got his start in the music business playing with the legendary Buck Owens. He was also instrumental in the creation of the subgenre known as Bakersfield Country. It was Rich's unique guitar work that made this new music style so popular, and soon he had become the bandleader for Owens' band, the Buckaroos. Rich released his only solo album, That Fiddlin' Man, in 1971, and spent the vast majority of his career playing with Owens and his backing band. Some of his most memorable guitar work appears on the tracks Act Naturally, Before You Go, and Buckaroo. Sadly, Rich died just as he was entering his prime. On July 17, 1974, for unknown reasons, his motorcycle hit a divider on the highway. He was pronounced dead on arrival at a nearby hospital. Rich, who was only 32 years old, left behind a wife and 2 sons. Veteran actor Treat Williams died on June 12, 2023, after being caught up in a fatal motorcycle collision with an SUV. He was 71 years old. Williams had begun his acting career in the mid-1970s, and he was a steady presence on TV and in movies all the way up until his death. In 1996, he was nominated for a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Miniseries or a Special, and he also had several Golden Globes nominations. Williams was riding in Dorset, Vermont when he got into his fatal motorcycle accident. He was later pronounced dead in an Albany, New York hospital. Williams had tweeted just hours before the crash about how much he was enjoying a day spent mowing the lawn, and he had also posted an Instagram video showing off the beautiful landscape. He is survived by his wife Pam and 2 kids, Gil and Ellie. Soon after his death, Williams' co-star Barbara Niven told Entertainment Tonight,
Treat Williams Treat just lived a large life in every way. He savored it.
Cedric Benson was a longtime NFL running back who tragically passed away from a motorcycle accident in 2019. Benson played for teams ranging from the Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Green Bay Packers for 8 seasons between 2005 and 2012. His best season came in 2009 for the Bengals, when he rushed for a total of 1,251 yards and scored 6 touchdowns. He also came in 4th in the voting for the Associated Press's Comeback Player of the Year award. Coming out of college, Benson was a highly regarded prospect, so much so that he was drafted with the 4th overall pick in the Bears' 2005 NFL Draft. The year prior, Benson had won the Doak Walker Award while attending the University of Texas at Austin. While he never lived up to his lofty draft status, Benson was still a very dependable running back for several years and had a solid career. On August 17, 2019, Benson was riding with a passenger on his motorcycle when he got into an accident in Austin, Texas. Sadly, both died at the scene. Benson's motorcycle collided with a large minivan, whose occupants were not badly injured. Notably, Benson had numerous arrests for driving under the influence, and the toxicology report showed marijuana in his system at the time of the crash. Residents of Muskegon, Michigan woke up on July 17, 2021 to some sad news. The day prior, former state representative Doug Bennett was involved in a terrible motorcycle accident. He had been pronounced dead later that night. Bennett had previously served on the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, and he was also elected to 3 terms in the State House of Representatives for Michigan, stretching from 2004 to 2010. Bennett spent much of his time in office working on legislation to help the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians in Muskegon get their own casino. In 2009, Bennett was diagnosed with a brain hemorrhage, but managed to survive and even performed his legislative duties throughout his illness.
He never viewed public service as a job. He did it because he honestly wanted to serve people.
It was not entirely clear what had transpired during the crash, as by the time police made it to the scene, Bennett was already unconscious. The crash involved Bennett's motorcycle and a pickup truck, but the police did not release details about who was potentially at fault or if anyone was facing any charges. The 75-year-old had been out of office for over a decade when he died. By 2004, Larry Desmedt, or as most people knew him, Indian Larry, was one of the most respected custom motorcycle builders in New York City. In addition to being a reputable mechanic and custom bike builder, Desmedt was also a TV personality and stuntman. The name Indian Larry came from his love of Indian brand motorcycles, though his first bike was actually an older Harley-Davidson. Desmedt also ran a custom motorcycle building business called Indian Larry Motorcycles. On August 30th, 2004, Desmedt was shooting an episode of The Great Biker Build-Off when he attempted a stunt that involved standing on top of his motorcycle. Unfortunately, the stunt went wrong and Desmedt was killed in full sight of a sizable crowd that had gathered to watch. He had not been wearing a helmet when he died. Desmedt left behind a wife after his death, and his business partners have kept Indian Larry Motorcycles running nearly 2 decades since. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website,